The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. WealthBuilders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Today's episode is brought to you by WealthBuilders Membership, a proven step-by-step process that helps you achieve financial security within 2 to 3 years. To find out more, head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Wealth Talk, the podcast purposefully designed to help you build, protect and transfer your wealth as efficiently as possible. And I'm joined today by co-host, co-presenter, co-author, Bimbi Fernando. Bimbi, you've got some great news to share, haven't you?
Yes, well, it's nice having that introduction, but co-author as well. So here it goes. So this is my second book, Purposeful Retirement. I know I shared with you my first book, and this is a book which is very, very much linked to crucial themes as far as I see it, as far as wealth building is concerned. Kindness, which I know we've talked about quite a lot. And I know that you've kindly asked me to join you as a co-host because I feel that purpose and kindness has a role to play in wealth building. So,
and a role to play, I suppose, as well.
That was a bit of a Freudian slip there, which have to. But we've got a wonderful guest today, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But people before profits is one of the crucial phrases.
That sounds like it resonates with purpose and kindness, doesn't it?
It does indeed. Yes.
So this is the wonderful Lorraine Thomas.
Absolutely.
I know Lorraine. Lorraine is a client of WealthBuilders, actually, and introduced also by Sheila Smith, who we've had on recently, who is also a WealthBuilder member. So not that we just like to interview WealthBuilder members, we don't. But there are some things that truly, I think, really do resonate with the community of people who share common values. And thanks to you for sharing the common language, keeping the sort of IP, or my IP anyway, going strong, and I thank you for that. But rather than kind of wax lyrical about what's to come, why don't we go and have a listen to your interview with Lorraine Thomas.
So welcome, Lorraine. Can I just do a brief introduction and then over to you to colour it in, because I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. Thank you for coming to Wealth Talk. So you are an award-winning property developer, mentor, and a visionary founder of A View From My Window. And it's fair to say that you've built quite a successful property empire. And what truly stands out for me is your commitment to people before profit and social housing. So that's the things that have jumped up with me. And that's why I, in my own position, would be very, very keen to hear more about what you're doing. But would you be able to colour that in, please, and just talk about your experience in property as to why you're here now and how you got there, please?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Bimbi. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm always excited to talk about what I do, particularly around that ethos, people before profit. That's really, really important because that runs through the whole DNA of the business, me, and I guess where I go in the future. Backstory, I never actually knew that I was going to be a property developer. I didn't even know what a property developer was. I'm an accidental, if you like, property developer, investor, whatever term you want to use. And I suspect we'll come on to it more later, how I arrived there. But I'm going to jump straight into development because people say they're a property developer. And I think, what is that? Is that actually ground up? Or does it mean that you go to auction, buy and knock walls down and create more space and make it beautiful? Is that a developer or is that an investor? Anyway, my take on it is I became a true developer when I was dropping my sister home one evening. If anyone knows my sister, she's very much glass half empty. If the sun is out, more will be, it will rain in the next 5 minutes, So she's always got this, whereas I'm always like, way. Anyway, Maureen spots this piece of land and it's just like garages with sort of land in front of it. And she says, wouldn't it be amazing to build a house on that? And I looked at it and I thought, did Maureen actually say that? And as I drop her off, she goes, maybe Lorraine, I might ring them up and check out that board. And I said, yeah, Maureen, do that. So we never spoke about it for a little while. In the background, I thought, we're on to a big thing here. Forget one house. We could build maybe 10 on this. And I remember the mayor saying, build up, because there was this lack of housing. And I thought we could go for this. So I spoke to Dolores, who became my business partner. Backstory, we'll cover that later. And she said, why don't we just go for it? So we were not seasoned developers. We didn't know anything about developing. We just thought, we're just going to go for it. We're going to put an offer in. And I remember the agent saying, all the offers that we've received are conditional. And we went, well, we'll go unconditional then. And off we went, not even realising what that meant. And I think the asking prices were around 450,000, and we went unconditional 470. What were we, literally? But I had a hunch, I had a feeling that this had to pass planning because it was just there, and we need houses, and there were loads of houses around it. So this didn't seem complicated in my simple mind. Anyway, through the planning exercise, we went, and architects said, you can get 6 here. And we were like, no, we want to do 9. We're going to go for 9. Put it through 9. We got it. Amazingly. And from that point, I mean, there was a lot of ups and downs and all, there's a whole story around it. But it's at that point I realized I'm a property developer. I'm actually building ground up.
So this is your glass half full sister pointing out to you something that hadn't even occurred to you. So that came out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
But second thing is, in Wealth Builders, we talk a lot about education, and education is quite crucial to anything, and going through quite a rigorous program, education support, due diligence, guided action. That doesn't strike me that you had too much of that in this particular thing. Was it gut feeling, or how much knowledge did you have at that point?
Right. So the timing is crucial for that question, because it was at that point Dolores and I went, holy moly, we better go and get some property education. We joined, I'm not going to name them, a really good group of people. And we'd gone to some property exhibition. I think it was in Earl's Court, and they were talking, and we thought, we signed up. But what we found actually during that education was we knew more than we thought we knew, because previously I had given up my job to care for my dad, and I kind of fell into property, and Dolores and I went off to auction. So we already had auction experience. And I say auction experience, we made a whole load of mistakes. We'll come on to that. But because we knew that property is a risky game, there are some risks, finance, all the other things, like you say, due diligence, all of those things come into play, particularly if you're buying at auction. We were a little bit savvy, but had no notion of buying at auction to developing. They are two hugely different things. And that's why I say I start with, I could call myself a true developer because of all the hurdles, all the lessons. And during the education, and honestly, it is important to get education. It really is important, because we met, and why it's important, not so much exactly what you're going to learn, but it's the people that you meet in those circles, the connections that you make. And the network started to grow. So we started to connect with builders and architects and quantity surveyors and, people that you need if you're going to start doing development. So it's a really good way to easily, quickly get connected and start your journey. And with the right, because there are going to be people in the room that are more experienced than you. What we found was people were actually asking us, because we'd gone to auction, what was our experience. And we found that it was actually a bit of both.
So you were sharing your knowledge as well as
Yeah.
asking others. I mean, we've also got this great phrase in Wealth Builders, a great sort of mentality of being part of a community, that you imagine yourself crossing over a bridge where you put your hand out to the person in front of you to help you across the bridge, but also turn around and almost have more joy in turning behind you to pull the person behind you, you know. So it's great to see that you found a similar community. Now, one thing that does strike me is you're quite a unique person. All right. Not many people would drive past a plot and listen to a sister saying we should develop on that and actually pick that up and run with it. That must come from somewhere. Okay. So I wonder whether you could just tell me whether you'd be really interested, for example, to hear about your youth growing up and perhaps your family influences.
So when I was growing up, first of all, when my parents first came to this country, and I talk about this all the time, nobody would rent to them, Bimby. My mum and my dad ended up sharing a room with two other couples. And so it's important that I view from my window, and everything I do actually remembers that. And that's why we now rent to people who are disadvantaged, who don't tick all the boxes. Increasingly more difficult now with the new rights and the Act and all of that. Increasingly difficult. But there is still a thing around giving people a chance and helping people in their darkest hour. And when I was growing up, Maureen and I, my sister, had to share a room. My dad managed to save, eventually come out of his situation. He saved Barclays under the bed because he couldn't get a bank account. And he put the money together, bought his first house. It was a 3-bedroom house. That's where we were born. And then when we moved, they bought a 5-bedroom house. No, it was a 6-bedroom house. But Maureen and I still had to share a room. And we always thought, what's going on here? Because there's enough room for all of us. We can all have our own room. But my dad believed in opening the front door so that anybody who was ever in a situation that he was in, they could come and stay with him until they found their feet. And so we were always very used to lodgers and people living with us for very short periods of time, in and out. And then the other side of that, mum would cook up a storm. So on a Sunday, she'd open the front door, she'd cook, just open the front door, and people would just wander in and come and eat with us. It was the most bizarre thing. When I talk about it now, I'm I actually grew up like that, with people just wandering around, eating or living with us. And so it's always stuck with me. And I guess all of what runs through me is about giving and recognizing that when you've got a little bit, it's a lot to somebody else. And I still carry that today. So my little bit that I have, I want to share it with others, because mum's saying, the more you give is the more you get. And so we just kept giving. But my coach tells me now that actually, Lorraine, it's become a problem because you constantly give and you have a block about receiving. So that's a whole other issue. But the main thing is about looking and supporting other people. So that's kind of the background to why I'm mentally a little bit quirky.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your mother? She sounds like an incredible lady to inspire you with that phrase.
She really was. So I had my mum only for 16 years. She died when I was 16 of cervical cancer. And actually, she didn't tell anybody she was going to die. But I think she knew it. She was losing weight. And what she'd do is she'd put on loads and loads of clothes to sort of bulk up. And then one day I accidentally sort of just burst into her bedroom and I saw her and she was changing. And I was, Mum, you've lost so much weight. I said, look, we've got to get you to the doctors. Went to the doctors and they diagnosed her with cervical cancer, which today, if you find that, it's curable. But she just didn't say it to anybody. And she just kept on, my dad bought her a washing machine and she never took it out of the packet. She continued to wash the clothes by hand and looked at the washing machine with the plastic on it. So she was just a real Caribbean woman who had staunch values around, we had to sort of dress up on a Sunday for dinner. We had to put our best on to sit around the table. We had to slice the cucumbers and the tomatoes in a certain way. And that was like, it was really well presented. And she was very well presented. And there were certain little things, nuances that I got from her that, you know, the way you look matters and the way you present yourself matters. And always offer before you yourself. But then she used to have this quirky little phrase. She used to say, never leave your purse empty, because she'd always say, leave your purse empty. But on the other hand, never leave it empty. And I couldn't work out what she was on about. What she was saying was that you give your last penny, but it will come back to you. So, and it took me ages to realize this, long after her death. But yeah, she had these little phases, and it's weird because Maureen and I are so different, but Maureen has her own wonderful, quirky ways.
So who defined your entrepreneurial spirit then?
I mean, my dad was literally, I don't think Dad couldn't spell the word entrepreneur, but he clearly was, because he would like rent the rooms for like little amounts to help people out, not realizing that actually that was paying his mortgage and helping him. And, you know, and then he would sort of allow people to rent them at a low rate so that they could save, so that they could then buy somewhere, so that they could move on. And, you know, all of that. So it definitely comes from him, and the generosity comes from my mum, I think, and the entrepreneurialism comes from my dad.
That's lovely to have that background. And, you know, 16 years old, you lost your mum. So clearly that was a defining time for you. And that probably allowed you to look at different things. So what jobs and roles did you have after that then?
So when I lost my mum, I actually didn't want to live. I remember thinking, oh, you know, I don't want to go to college. I don't forget university. I just don't want to do anything. I was the only person at the age of 16. Everyone around me still had mum and dad. And I was almost the girl who lost her mum. So everybody else became my mum, and everybody else's mum became my mum. So I had several mums, but not my own mum. I remember thinking, I don't want to work. I don't want to live. I don't want to be here. I don't want a job. I just don't want to do anything. Anyway, I eventually got a job in the city, Scrutton Street, which I passed last week, in EC2. And it was my first ever job making up company names in a formations agency. So I'd put like glasses and phone together and call it Glass Phone Limited. And it was like you could buy these from off the shelf. £99 it was for the mem and arts, and it was a ready-made company. So I guess I had kind of that for a very long time in the back of my head. So after that, I moved into payroll. I've had several jobs where something happens in the job, and it always happens. The boss leaves and I end up being the boss, not even knowing how to be a boss. So I was in my second job, a payroll job. I was just like doing the clock cards, handing out the pay at the end of the week on a Friday. And then the boss left. I became head of personnel. I was then doing like everything, the tax, everything to do with HMRC, the money, the this. And I'd sit in a little room on my own. Nobody would speak to me because they all knew I knew what they were earning. So the whole company knew that I knew what everyone was earning. So no one would talk to me. Whenever we had socials, no one would want to be on my team. We had a night out doing bowling. No one wanted to be there because I knew everything in the company. And I just seemed to land these roles where they were hugely responsible. Somebody would go and then I would be thrown in the deep end. So I've always been thrown in the deep end in any job that I've had. So it's sink or swim.
So being uncomfortable is quite common for you, sinking or swimming in that scenario. And you enjoy that, and you enjoy the challenge.
I'm at my best when I'm under pressure. When I'm seriously I launched Prime, which we're going to come on to, on Wednesday. And on Sunday, I was in panic mode going, I'm launching this. And I don't know. And it was amazing. I think I'm one of these people who I just seem to get it. But if you give me a lot of time to plan, I'm going to wait till the last minute and do everything in the last minute. I'm not a pace yourself and do it. I'm a give it to me, it's got to be cushy, because then I make decisions really quickly. I don't fluff around. And I think that's partly what's in the property game as well for me, that make a decision, go for it, whether it's at auction or whatever. And what's the worst that can happen? We're going to fix it. That's the way I see life.
So you had positions of responsibility in the city, from the sound of it, and even roles waiting for the boss to leave so that you can step into their shoes. That's how I'm visualizing you. So I'll be a bit worried if you join my organization and then I'll be thinking, okay, does that mean I'm about to leave and I in my shoes? But something must have changed from you to go from that to, there must have been some hiatus for you to end up with property development. What happened there?
I spent 20 years in law firms and in marketing and business development, and I evolved. And Dad, I was really comfortable in my last job, and then my dad became ill with Parkinson's and dementia. And because he had been mum and dad for so long, I felt it was my job, my responsibility to give up my role and care for him. So I made the decision and I said, right, that's it, I'm off. And I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage. I was going to be earning £62.50 a week on a carer's allowance. I didn't know how ends were going to meet. But this little voice in my head said, Lorraine, it will be okay. It will be okay. I followed that voice and I gave up my job, became a carer, a full-time carer. Now, I'm going to honour all those who are carers because it is the hardest job in the world. And for me, Dad was sleeping in the day, waking up at night. So I just wasn't sleeping. And this went on 3-4 months. I was like, is this my lot? Is this what I've become? A carer? I'm just exhausted. There was no respite, none of this. And I just thought, oh my goodness, is this it? And then I received this email from a friend who is now my business partner. And she was looking for somebody to house young, vulnerable adults that were in the care system. I jumped at the chance and said, yes. I responded in the email. Yes, I can do that. The email wasn't meant for me. It was meant for another Lorraine. I call it serendipity. I responded, and within weeks, I was housing vulnerable young adults. I was really good at selling into estate agents and other developers and anyone that had a property that would rent it to me. I was there saying, you're going to be doing a good thing. They bought into the concept of housing a young person. Great. But the accommodation wasn't good at all. It was actually really bad. And they were putting lots of stipulations on us, like we want 3 months rent up front. It was like huge. And we thought we could do this better. So off we went to auction. Dad had said, look, I've got a little bit of money put aside for you and Maureen. If I give this to you now, promise me that you will help Maureen when you hit the big time. So he gave me I almost had my inheritance before he died. He gave me this pot of money. So I had my half to go to auction and Dolores had her half, and we bought a property, made every mistake going, like literally, like we didn't meet the special conditions. It went on and on and on. And so we went back, made different mistakes, went back again, made different mistakes. We were learning all the time, but just making different mistakes, different things coming up. So we truly can call ourselves, we know a lot about auctions now. We're professionals because I mentor on it now, all of that, because I learned so much from my mistakes. And I wouldn't want anybody to make the same mistakes that I made. So that's why I became a mentor. Back to the question of how did I arrive in property development? So we bought lots of properties at auction. We housed vulnerable young adults and also people that were disadvantaged. And it really just took off from there.
I suppose many people who understand a little bit about property development is making the deals stack. And when you're trying to do something with, there's a challenge to try and make profit because there's a lot of money at stake and often it's borrowing significant amounts of money for that, being through bridging finance or other forms of development finance, or both. And it's quite hard to square it up, I would suspect, with social housing and providing good homes for vulnerable people. So how did you navigate that particular challenge, especially coming from the background that you had, where you were a carer one week and then sort of progressing into property development? How did you navigate that?
So the first thing is, I want to clarify that term social housing, because when people think about social housing, they think it's just people that they don't work and they get a grant from the government and the government pay for their housing and all of that. Social housing. The social housing that we do is people do work. They work 2-3 jobs and they struggle to make ends meet. So, we're renting at the lower end. The property's amazing, but, and why shouldn't they live in a nice place? But the rent is lower, and it's almost like, I don't want to say it's a loss leader. It's not. It's more of, we're giving people a chance to look at aspiring to do better for themselves. So we might make money out of, development and building. Successful companies need to make money. For me, there needs to be a balance. And I think that profit and purpose, they almost go together, because if you've got a purpose and you're thinking about helping somebody else, that drives you. And then the profit comes because you've got the purpose. What goes around comes around. And it goes back to my mum's saying, give what you've got because it will come back to you. And it does. It comes back to us in Joe's, because we've never got like property that's like we're struggling to rent or any of that. And people come to us because they know that it's a fair rent. We're giving them a chance. They do their best to pay the rent. They, like I say, they work 2-3 jobs. And if they can't, and there have been times where they've struggled and they've gone, I can't pay the rent. And we've been creative and gone, well, you can paint. So why don't you paint that house for us, or paint that room, or do that? You can do gardening. So why don't you do that? And so we come up with creative ways so that they feel they haven't lost their self-esteem, but they're doing something, they're earning, and they're just doing something different for a little while until they kind of get it back together again. And then I guess that goes back to where I come from.
So is that the essence of View from My Window then?
So Dolores has a massive company herself, which continues to support vulnerable young people coming out the care system. And the bit we have together is the bit that houses them. And then my bit, View from My Window, is kind of more about mentoring. It's about creating opportunities for young people to get onto the ladder. I have a learn, earn and own program where they can put some money in. It's like a 2 or 3 together, and they've got a shareholders agreement, and they're building together. So they're on, they're owning, because I'm a strong believer in owning. I know that the clocks have changed, and many young people, they don't want to own at the moment, because they're going, well, there's so many things, there's red tape everywhere, and I just don't want it. But I still maintain that ownership, particularly in the UK, is the way to go. There's a certain way that you are treated if you own.
So, you've been recognised with awards, but I suspect your ambition lies beyond awards and a deeper purpose. And I know that you've been busy behind the scenes in the last month, culminating in something this week. So would you like to tell us what you've been up to recently?
So awards are great because they help you to recognise where you've come, and that you get a chance to look back at your business. But my greatest accolade, I think, has to be a medal. A Lancelot Andrews medal. I was awarded it through services to the community. That's kind of like the ethos where Prime started. So I wanted women to feel what I felt when I was awarded that medal for godly services in my community. What I did during COVID was I created, it wasn't a podcast, it was more of a reel, if you like. And it was bringing together voices that people in my church and my community had heard before, but we couldn't gather. So we couldn't go to church, we couldn't go to the community centre, couldn't do any of those things. And so I would ask people to just record on their phone a little song, a little message, a little prayer, anything that they were thinking about. And I'd pull it together and it became this little reel of like goodness. And people were dying, like thousands of people were dying. And so many people in our community lost family, friends, etc. And they wanted somewhere to go, whether they were religious or not. They wanted something to listen to, someone to have acknowledged that they were in this pain and that their loved ones had gone. And so it might have been a prayer for somebody, or it might have been a young child playing the triangle, or it might have been the priest saying, doing a chapter of a verse, whatever. It all came together. Anyway, this thing went viral to the point that the archdeacon got involved and he said, can I come on and do a little thing on your thing? And he recorded stuff, then other archdeacons, until it got noticed. And yeah, I got awarded this medal, which is amazing. So the point I share that is because we're never done and we don't know what's ahead of us. And Prime is all about success. It's not for everyone. It's women who have made success, be that in property, in their business, whatever business they have, but they are perceived as successful because they've made it. They're entrepreneurial and they're looking around going, what next? And why am I here? There must be something else. I'm on that last run, but I want to leave an impact. I want to affect my community. I just don't know. I don't have the space. I don't have the connection. I don't have the time. I don't have the finances, whatever it is. So Prime is about capturing that. And I don't know anybody else that's doing it, that's thinking about, okay, how do we create a legacy, leave a lasting, the legacy starts now. It's not, legacy isn't when you're dead. Legacy starts now. And so it's creating something that's going to impact not your clients or your friends and family. It's wider than that. It's your community. It's country. It's a nation. How big? You could go as big as you want to. It excites me to even talk about it. And that has come from this Lancelot Andrews medal, that because I had no idea the impact I was making in my community. People were like, I listened to this every Sunday morning. I listened to it. And it's like, wow, I didn't even know I was doing that. And that is what, when successful women switch their hand to something incredible, they can make such a difference without even knowing how much of a difference they're making.
That is brilliant. So Prime, and that launched, did it this week? Is that
launched on Wednesday? We had a discovery day. It was awesome. And the thing is, I still have doubts about myself. So I booked a room at King's Cross. It was a lovely room in a nice hotel and blah, blah. And it sold out. And I was kind of like, see, that's what happens when you doubt yourself. If I had gone for a bigger room, I would have then like, oh my goodness, I can't fill it. So I went for the small room to play it safe. And then I sold out. So, but it gave me the confidence that I got to do this again. It's awesome. Women got a chance to think about what's next. Think about, I want to create this, but it just feels too big for me on my own. But with the right peer advisory, community support and the connections, it's possible. And I want people to do this and blow people's minds and win awards for it, because I know that these are going to be incredible projects.
So wonderful to hear about that. I mean, what you're talking about does resonate with respect to the wealth building model of the different levels of finance and income, the asset income. So we talk about insecurity before security and then independence. But what you're talking about is abundance and then actually legacy impact, and so that is absolutely wonderful to see how you've used your wealth building throughout your time to really enjoy what you're doing, but now you're actually thinking beyond independence as to the sort of impact you have. Quick question for you, just as a challenge. You're focusing on women. What have us men done that's wrong? Why
Right.
women? Is it a safe
So
space?
let me teach you a thing or two, Bimby. So
Yeah.
I used to mark CIM papers. I was at CIM Examiner for a little while, Chartered Institute of Marketing. So at heart, I have a master's in marketing, and marketing runs through me. So working in law firms, it was getting the lawyers to think about how they retain their clients, how they get more work out of their clients, how they profile themselves, all of that. And so the one thing I always used to say is, don't do scattergun approach, because it's not going to work. Focus, focus, focus. Go for a target market, go for a target audience, shoot, and it will land. Don't do scattergun and just wish for the best and hope. You can't serve everybody. And that's why Prime is not for everybody. It's for leaders who are now thinking, what can I give? Because I've made it. What can I give? And so that's why it's just for women, because it's low hanging fruit for me. I'm a woman myself. I understand how we tick, how we roll, how we flex. And so it's easy to target it on women first. But I also recognize that men have some incredible things that they could be doing too. And I've spoken to 3 or 4 men, yourself included, Bimby, that have blew my mind with projects that they are thinking they want to bring to the world to create impact and leave a lasting legacy for themselves, to have achieved it, but more so what it's going to leave behind. So yeah, that's the only reason. It's about focus. It's about, let's see how it goes first with one stream. And then of course I'm going to roll it out into, there's going to be Prime Man. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, what a wonderful place to leave it. So how can our listeners connect with you or find out more about the work you're doing with Prime and View from My Window and Lorraine Thomas?
And LinkedIn is probably the easiest. View from My Window on LinkedIn, Lorraine Thomas. I also have Instagram, which is View from My Window. It's all _view_ from my, but if you put in View from My Window, I'll come up.
We could also share anything in the show notes as well with our audience. So yes. Well, look, absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for talking about your background and your careers, and actually sharing, your mistakes as well. The humility that it takes from that, but actually that demonstrates the entrepreneurial spirit to my mind. The fact that you learn from your mistakes, you don't sort of just lick your wounds and stay in the corner. And it's just incredible to see how you have inspired and helped many people. But what I'm really excited about now is the pleasure you're going to derive from what is ahead of you. So congratulations on that, and good luck with that. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you at a later date. So thank you again, Lorraine.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and see you on the other side of Prime.
Well, that was a fascinating interview, Bimby. How was it for you?
It's a great position to be in a seat talking to people about what really makes them passionate about why they're building wealth. And I'm also quite a nosy person, as you may have discovered. I do like asking additional questions and just going a bit deeper and behind the person that is presenting themselves normally to the external world. And she was very gracious, I'm sure you'd agree, about sharing a lot of insights into what caused her to go down the journey she went down, really. Yeah,
well, it's always good to really get the warts and all story, because then you get the true person, and that's fascinating to hear. And I know that she shares a sort of a common theme with me as well. Bimby, do you know that? She posted recently on LinkedIn a picture of her father, and she said she's put her entire successes, down to how her father influenced her. And I dropped her a note back on LinkedIn saying, we share a common source of inspiration. Not that we need a catalyst of tragedy or anything like that to cause us to move and change direction. But her catalyst was her father. My catalyst was my father. And I'm just curious, really, for most people, if you're listening now, if you're serious about building your wealth, you probably need a catalyst, because without the strength to start you off and then keep you going when sometimes things go a little awry, which they do from time to time, right? You can always get derailed on any journey. That's the natural order of things. It's never all the traffic lights on green when you set off on a journey, and nor will they ever be. So, yeah, I share that with Lorraine. And do you know what? I just love her unbundled enthusiasm. She's unstoppable, isn't she, really? She's definitely a character beyond her size.
She is an irresistible force, actually. And what I love about her is how she genuinely believes and lives the values of putting people before profits. And that stems from her parents, who are immigrants to this country, coming over from Jamaica. And it stems from the fact that the father unwittingly became an entrepreneur by sort of renting out rooms to other people. And they discovered that it was a real problem for people, which she shared with us. People of our color weren't allowed to stay in certain places. And yet they opened up the house for this. And she had a larger house than what they needed for the family, but still she shared with her sister. And I just thought that was just wonderful. And if that's instilled from that age, that is amazing. And then hearing about her mother as well, and the sorts of terms that her mother would come out with, quite remarkable. Sort of give every last penny you have, because it will come round and come back to you eventually. And so there is something about the right sort of charitable karma that comes with this. And it took her a while to understand that, but certainly she lives those values.
Well, she does, and she also lives life on the edge as well. You can hear from her story, she takes risks sometimes, what appear to be not necessarily due diligence risks, and the way that WealthBuilders sets out sort of, the various steps to just go for it. And that's typical. Although she does have a steadying influence in Dolores. They're very definitely the opposite to Lorraine, but they're a good team. And it was good when I met them in London, a couple of years ago, I think, when I met them. And what's your take on her latest venture?
Wow. Well, that is really exciting. The fact that she wants to inspire other professional women and give them a safe space to do so, to really find their own way of making a dent in the universe. I just feel that is wonderful. You may have noticed I did sort of put in a cheeky question about why is this only for women? And she put me right, I think is fair to say. But I understand that. And that's a great lesson as well when you're setting up a new business, to actually start with a narrow niche and a narrow focus before diversifying and making it wider.
Not unlike the lesson we give in WealthBuilders, which is focus your way to financial security, then diversify your way into wealth. So the lessons are, relevant, I suppose, in there as well. Well, that's great. Well, listen, you've done a couple now?
Yes, this is a couple with you. This is my first person that I'm actually interviewing, the first real life person. Not that you're not real life, but it probably doesn't count when it's you and Christian.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. But, it's good that you enjoyed it, and it showed, and I enjoyed your questions as well. So I think the podcast is in good hands with a combination of Yumi and Tracy, who's doing her bit as well for Women in Wealth. So Bimbi, thanks again for your time. Thanks for sharing, and good luck with the book. And to everyone listening, we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Wealth Talk. And until then, everyone, see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the WealthBuilders membership site to help you create, build, and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.